It is a great pleasure to be here, not only to be here speaking at this commencement, but to have been a part of things since Thursday and to see what wonderful things happen as this class concludes its time at St. John's Northwestern Military Academy. I am very aware that I am the last of a long list of speakers through the past few days, and it may be on your minds just how long this is going to go on. Hopefully I will not disappoint you. I would also say that through all the time that I worked with President Albert on his thesis project and some of the struggles we had, I knew that he would do well, as he did. And during my time here in the past few days, I know that he carried with him into that project the spirit of this institution. And so it was my great privilege not only to struggle with him, but to know he was going to make it through. As is the case, we proudly say to our graduates today. Now, in the words of Woody Allen, before I begin, let me say something really important. Gentlemen of the class of 2015, you know a lot of things now. I suspect there is probably one thing you don't know. As you go through these exercises, it is very difficult for you to understand just what your parents are experiencing right now. For some, it may be disbelief. For some, it may be relief. But I think for most of them, it is something akin to a heart unexplainedly overflowing with joy. And it is something you will be able to understand only when you have come full circle and find yourself in their seats in years hence. That, I believe, is one of the great mysteries of this day, this thing we call commencement, and of all the comings and goings that we find in life. Yet another example of what Yeats once wrote: how many times a man lives and dies between his two eternities. Of almost 1,000 Episcopal schools in the United States, St. John's Northwestern Military Academy, in my mind, occupies a very unique place. It embodies a rare mixture of ritual, tradition, a way of life, and a strength of purpose. In the various events I have been privileged to be a part of this weekend, I have sensed a connection in this school to something much larger than just what we're doing here today, who you are today, and who everyone else is today. It is not just about us that brings us together in these events. Still, this is a place that changes people's lives. And I think its focus on leadership is very different from any of the other courses or programs you will find throughout the United States on leadership. Because while it may not have said this, in this program, one learns that to be a leader, you also have to be a follower. And by that, I mean you must ally yourselves with a sense of values, a rule of life, and a sense of what has gone before you. Too many leaders in this world today think of themselves simply as leaders and not as followers. And we see each day the playing out of the casualties of that lack of judgment. But in my brief time with you this morning, this afternoon, I want to share with you a story about a former student of mine whom I taught some years ago. And at one point, as head of the upper school where he was attending, I had to suspend him from school During his senior year, he had forged some documents, thus landing him in front of the school's honor council. And the honor council recommended that he be suspended from school, and as he was vice president of his class at that time, to be stripped of the office that he held. I was the one who received those recommendations, and I accepted their decision. He was suspended, and he had to step down from the office of vice president. I share this with you because of what he told me in a conversation he had initiated with me just a few weeks ago. Decades have passed. He has gone on to a very good college, done well in the career he has pursued, felt blessed by a good marriage and wonderful children. A charmed life, you might say, coupled with a future that looks equally promising. But he reminded me, and he wanted to make this very clear to me, that not a day passes, so many years later, that he does not think about what happened on that day long ago when he forged those documents. Well, I asked him, why do you recall this so often, wondering if maybe he harbors some lingering anger about what had happened, and maybe wants to tell that to me right now. But he told me he remembered the incident, not because he had unresolved feelings about it, because he used it rather each day as an example of what can happen in life, and indeed what we have to learn from life. As I thought about what he said, I thought about the custom in Roman times, when the emperor would return to Rome for a triumphal parade, following and celebrating a great victory. As was the custom, and you may know about this, a slave always sat behind the emperor in the chariot, holding the golden crown of Jupiter, and whispering into the ear of the emperor, "Remember, Caesar, thou art mortal." Perhaps the incident my former student remembered in some way served as a reminder each day to him, not only of his mortality, but of our collective mortality. Unless your ears have been completely sealed off from hearing chapel after chapel during your time here, you have heard, in addition to important messages about what you can be and do and become, you also learned something akin to what the slave said to the emperor. We're mortal human beings, and although much we would like to prefer to deny it or overlook it, we make mistakes. We fall short of expectations, whether those expectations are our own or those of others. What's more, here's the truth of our world today. It is easier than ever for people to notice the mistakes we make. We're able to take notice of them and broadcast them to the world in a way we've never been able to do before. Our technological age has the immense capacity to catch us making mistakes virtually at any point in our lives, wherever we may be, and to make a very big deal of it. Couple that with the fact that we live in a very unforgiving culture where there are a lot of people that are more than eager to trump up the mistakes we make, perhaps even to shame us. And we realize that in a world that ironically says anything goes, there's a lot of very judgmental people. chances are, better than not, that we will not only make mistakes in life, but that other people will notice them. And the higher you are in the world in terms of leadership, the more likely those things will be known. But if you're like me, I spend far more time already thinking about the mistakes I've made in life than the successes I've experienced. When I wake up in the middle of the night, chances are that I do not ruminate on moments of triumph, but on the times when my mortality has been all too apparent. Why did I say that? Why did I do that? What was I thinking? I can't believe I was so foolish. In an essay she wrote many years ago, Joan Didion described these moments as lying awake at night, counting up the sins of commission and omission. The trust betrayed, the promises broken, the gifts wasted. I do this myself, and I've counseled enough people over the years to know that I'm not alone. It's tough enough to make mistakes, but they have this way of revisiting you over and over and over. But here's the good news. There's a reason why this happens, and it's not just guilt, it's not just remorse. It is the fact that we learn more from the mistakes we make in life than any successes we experience. Here at St. John's Northwestern, you've been through a rigorous curriculum and have lived amidst a culture that focuses on leadership. From that, I hope you have gleaned not only that leaders make mistakes, but when leaders do not learn from the vast wellspring of their mistakes, they are perilled and destined to repeat them. No wonder that Kevin Scherer, CEO of Amgen, used to have a picture of General George Custer hanging on his office wall as an ongoing reminder against overestimating his ability and underestimating the challenges that lie ahead. Wise leaders know the price of things, the importance of having people around who will speak truth to them about their own mortality. And the greatest error of leadership is losing sight of our own mortality. No wonder columnist David Brooks, in his advice to employers, told them, hire people who have experienced setbacks, people who have suffered and have recouped from them. You will want real human beings, he said, who have learned the lessons that only suffering and setbacks can teach us, and who have gotten back on track. My message to you today is very simple. Have the courage of your mistakes. Don't try to forget about your mistakes. It's very hard to do. But to do so is to lose a precious learning opportunity that you can make use of over and over again. Make these mistakes work for you. Go back to them, take them out, dust them off, even make friends with them if you will. They'll never cease to teach you something. And what's more, in the long run, they will help you make peace with life and feel at home in this world. They will be a doorway to self-understanding and self-respect. Have the courage of your mistakes. Who knows? As a result, you might be able to tolerate the mistakes of others around you. Better to be able to accept them for who they are. And that's a need that's going to present itself more and more as you go through the years. lead this culture of ours into a better place where we are not only not petrified of making mistakes, but we don't busy ourselves looking for the mistakes of others. Since 1884, this school has been developing not only the minds of its students, but the character of young men. You've heard a lot over the years, even in the past few days, of what character is all about. That great definition of character of who you are when nobody's watching. But in the past hours, in two extraordinary student addresses, you've heard also two more definitions of character. How you will be remembered, and all the small things you do in life. All of these, vitally important. But I'm going to offer you one more. Character is not only about what you do or do not do, but what you do and who you are once you have already done something. It is the cumulative history of your responses to life, whether they are great successes or great mistakes. And now it is time to give back to God the time God has given you at this school. But as you do that, do not assume that all is now past. For I guarantee you, this time at St. John's Northwestern Military Academy will stick with you. And if you let it, it will never stop teaching you things. And dare I say, that your education at this academy has actually just commenced. Congratulations and God's blessing on that commencement.